It has been a minute since we've had a live, and I figured we'd go on in and jump into these questions. So why don't we start off with the first one? The first one is, how are you doing? And I think that was directed to me. How am I doing? But feel free to let me know how you're doing as well. I'm doing well. Doing well. I think if as a person who processes through organized categories, I'm somebody. If you ask me how I'm doing, it's almost like, well, which category of life do you want to start with? And those of you who I've rocked with and you've seen kind of the way I process from a coaching perspective knows that I will often pull up the 14 core life pillars, which is the, hey, how am I doing financially, romantically, emotionally, and mentally, the friends and the health and the fitness, the immediate family, the career and business. How's my extended family? How's the spirituality? How's the service impact? How's my physical harmony? How's my recreation and relaxation? How's my effectiveness and time management? How are my values and my virtues? So you may not be asking me all of that, but if I'm thinking about how I'm doing, often it's through the lens of the life pillars that I just had up on the screen. So, but for me, again, if I give you some general thing, yeah, how am I? Marriage is good. My health is better, and I was a little bit sick last week. My friendships are solid. I'm really blessed for the friendships that I have in my circle. It's quite humbling, honestly, to think through the people who are friends to me. I mean, they're incredible. They often embarrass me with how good they are to me. I feel like that about my friends, my family. They're very good to me. So anyway, marriage is doing good. Been in the gym. It's been fun. It's been fun. The NBA playoffs have been live, and I've been immersed in watching as much of and as many of the games as I can. So it's probably my favorite time of the year, which is the NBA playoffs. So anyway, I'll circle back to that in a little bit, but I'm doing well. So I know some people reached out, haven't posted as much, which is another question in and of itself. But that first question, how am I doing? I'm doing well. Now, again, I'll extend it to you. How are you doing? How's everything going in your world? Number two, people have asked, how's your church with everything? I know, I had a string of videos that was about some of the drama, some of the problems that was popping off in the church. People have asked, how's the church doing now? It seems like I think they're processing, making changes. I think there is a few things that had come up. Even from a transparency perspective, they want to be more transparent about, hey, how the finances are being used, and some more clarity around that. It's something that, again, means a lot to some people, and if it means a lot to you, again, power to you. And I think they're going to have a financial presentation, a little bit of a breakdown with the money, in a week or so. So anyway, I think they're trying to make change. I think there's changes coming before even some of the problems. But as far as I know, people are trying to make changes and continue to focus on Jesus and Him crucified, right? And trying to keep the main thing the main thing. I think as a number of my friends, have decided to go to different churches and find a new place for them to worship. For me, I think it's been important to even ask the question, something I've taught on previously, which is, are my friendships transcendent? And transcendent friendships, the transcendent friendship, it has a little sauce on it on purpose. Has a little style, a little flair to it. But what it means is the friendships and connections that I have, do they transcend the station in life that we're in? Okay, well, we both happen to work together for this season, or we both happen to go to church together for this season, or we both happen to be a part of this organization for this season. But will that last if the condition changes? So that's something that certainly it fascinates me. I want to be somebody who has the connections where just because we happen to be affiliated with a different church, or we work at a different company, or we're involved in different hobbies, that the friendship can sustain even those changes. So, anyway, how my church the church is doing. Again, it's always a weird thing to answer. As far as I know, again, making positive changes, moving forward. Number three, let's get into question number three, which is, why haven't you posted as much? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's the NBA playoffs. So I thought if there was a time to take a break, it'd probably be when there's 4 or 3 or 2, or for the first round of the playoffs, there's 4 games a day, 3 games a day, two games a day, and it's a lot of basketball to observe. So I thought it'd be a good time to take a little break, and then come back with it with some extra energy, effort, and a few other pieces to the studio as well. So I added a few pieces, and I'm excited about what's to come in the studio. So main reason I haven't posted as much, main reason I haven't gone live as much, is because of the NBA playoffs and taking care of a few projects outside of streaming and writing. Question number 4. Who are you going for in the NBA playoffs? Who are you going for in the NBA playoffs? I think I shared with a few people that I seem to have entered into the troll era of my NBA fandom. And what that means is most of who I'm going for has little to do with who I actually want to win versus who I actually just want to lose. So there's this certain players or things that have happened. I think Draymond Green is an easy person to want to root against. So he's just he's easily hateable as far as from, if you're watching basketball and you see different dirty things that are done. You certainly would want him on your team as opposed to playing against him, but you overall, it's difficult to like him. I think you respect him. You respect his basketball genius, his ability to facilitate and play defense. You have an element of respect for him. But then there's other things that have happened over the course of his career. Again, a number of just dirty plays that he's been involved in. And eventually, there's a saying in the John Maxwell book, Winning with People. He said, if Bob has problems with everybody, Bob is the problem. So when it comes to Draymond Green, I think when we think about him, I think when he's had different, he's had a couple of guys in the midsection, in the growing, and then he's had a number of dirty players. At some point, you go, okay, like is this just a coincidence that he happens to be a part of a number of dirty plays? And so anyway, I say all that to say it's easy for me to go against the Warriors when they have Draymond Green. So anyway, I find myself going for the Lakers And but the reasoning is fascinating. I've liked LeBron since the beginning, since his high school days. But beyond just LeBron, I also find myself, oh, again, from that troll era of my fandom or of being a fan, it's relevant when it comes to the MJ versus LeBron GOAT debates, and I think it's fun for the LeBron fans, or more so for the MJ fans in that debate or in that argument, for them to have to face additional success that LeBron has in the argument. So anyway, it's kind of like a troll on the MJ fans to see LeBron rack up additional accolades in his career. So anyway, all of that to say is that's who am I going for the NBA playoffs, and why do I find myself going for the Lakers? It's mostly trolling against the MJ GOAT preachers. We'll call them that. All right, next question. I think I mixed these questions up in my notes. Yeah, there we go. Okay, anyway. Here's like a deeper theological question. Did the gospel change your life? And it's a question. Those of us, again, from that Christian paradigm, we aim to, again, especially if you're a deductive processor, the idea before we even answer the question if it changed my life, first we define it. So when we define the gospel, we're talking about, let me pull up that passage here in 1 Corinthians 15 is where, we typically would go to break down the gospel. So anyway, we have, I'm going to pick it up in verse 1. It says, now, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you of the gospel I preached to you. So he says, I want to remind you of the gospel I preached to you, which you received and which you have taken your stand. By this gospel, you are saved if you hold firmly to the word I preached to you. Otherwise, you believed in vain. For what I received, I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas and then to the 12. Okay, so then we have the gospel. He's talking about, I want to remind you of the gospel. He talks about the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. And it's a topic that that in my own story, I had heard the gospel that Jesus had died for my sins, was buried, and was resurrected. That the gospel for me in my own story, it wasn't a unique story that I hadn't ever heard before whatever my church, Mission Point Christian Church, or before even ICOC or anything like that. I had heard the gospel, and I'd been to Catholic church at least a few times. I'd been baptized as a Catholic, and I asked questions about Jesus, but it wasn't actually hearing that Jesus died for me that radically shifted my life. That wasn't actually it. And it wasn't that he was buried. That wasn't actually it. And it wasn't even that he resurrected. That wasn't the unique event in my life that caused the change. But it was actually seeing and understanding what God wanted from my life, and seeing the power and practicality of that which the scriptures in the Bible had described as a way to live, and then experimenting with living it out and seeing that being not just a divine, but a superior and a supreme way of living. And it was something that was simple things in the beginning. It was like the scripture I had read early on in my journey was, do everything without complaining and arguing. And I just had that Philippians 2:14. When I saw it, I said, I want to be somebody who lives out this passage. And it goes on to talk about, you live like this, you'll that's one way you'll shine. And I wanted to be somebody like that. So, and there was people sitting down with me, and it was the mentorship. It was them calling me into a higher way of living. It was what some people would describe as discipleship. It was discipleship that resulted in a radical transformation of my life. Now, of course, the motivation that I learned to have later on was the gospel, was love, right? Love is that perfect motivator. And it's no different when it comes to people who are Christians. It's like the love that Jesus had in going to the cross for us is that perfect motivator for us. So, but it wasn't actually just hearing about the gospel that provoked this radical transformation. It was discipleship. So, and it's I bring it up, or it came up because, as you know, as different friends of mine are exploring. I think they're on a journey and they're trying to almost. I think there's a deconstruction and then a reconstruction. I heard that if deconstruction is fine, it's about deconstruction and the reconstruction, and deconstruction without the reconstruction is just destruction, right? And there's this concept of like, what are you building it back up with, or building your belief system or your perspectives. So I say all of that because the gospel, I had heard it many times before there was a radical transformation. So it wasn't the gospel, but it was, well, maybe we'll call it gospel adjacent. So it was gospel. It was the discipleship. It was the mentorship. It was seeing passages that I could readily apply to my life. So that's what seemed to be the major difference when it came to my life. Anyway, that's number 6. Number 7. Why do you post emotional videos? I post emotional videos. So I'll share with you that I think posting anything can provoke worry, anxiety. It can provoke hesitation. Like, okay, like why jump on? Why go live? Why share life? Why open yourself up to more things? But for me, sharing life, sharing the good, the success, sharing things, tips that I wish that I learned, that I failed, then I succeeded, then sharing about what happened is very important in my line of work. When you find a success or a best practice, it's a common principle in business to share best practices, what helped you to achieve whatever success you've had. In other words, don't hoard the principles of success that you found to actually work in your life. Share them with others. Don't hold on to them for yourself. So there's a principle of life sharing that is very, very important. But when I was teaching for a couple of years, I was teaching a class that I had wrote and designed on prayer, and the premise of the class came from this perspective, of those of us who grew up like on the Lord's Prayer. And you heard, I think I probably memorized it more from doing it before basketball games. Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. But lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Right? So this is a prayer said many, many times before basketball games on a variety of basketball teams that I was on. But and Jesus even said, this is how you should pray. So again, like your prayer that Jesus said, your prayer life could consist simply of those words. And then as I was a student of the scriptures, I would continue reading the Bible, other parts, and you would see how dynamic some of their prayer lives were. It wasn't just this, our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be your name. Another, just hallowed be your name. It wasn't just praise your name. It wasn't just a rigid regimen, which again, there's nothing wrong with that prayer. It's a powerful prayer. And nor do I even necessarily think that it's a model. I think that's another thought. Again, me personally, I don't think that it's a model. I think he said this is how you should pray. But to see other pieces of prayer lives that are not often showcased from the front in church. And what I mean by that is not even to provoke any like radical change, but the example of what I want to share is, if you can think of most of the times that you've seen people praying from the front of the church, most of the time, those prayers are optimistic, they're faithful, they're from people who are confident of their walk with God, of God's movement in their lives. And that's not wrong. That's solid. That's sturdy. That's good. But specifically when I would walk through the Psalms, I would see examples of people praying, and I'm gonna let me pull a few examples up for us. So from Psalm, let's put that one up there, and we have Psalm chapter 10, and then we'll see here in verse 1. And what you'll see here is, it says, "Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble?" So you get that question that seems to be immersed in doubts, in uneasiness, maybe even in anxiety, right? So you have this window, this glimpse into this prayer life where we don't see often modeled from the front. And I say it again, I'm not saying that we go into modeling of having a bunch of prayers that are depressed, disappointed, frustrated, angry, but I'm not saying that we immerse those into the front of the church, or I'm not even saying that Caleb should make a whole bunch of more songs that are oriented around those things. I think Caleb, for example, is that their name brand is positive and encouraging, right? But the prayer life in the scriptures weren't always and only positive and encouraging. So my hope is that when I would feel, especially if I was writing out a prayer and the prayer wasn't optimistic and the prayer wasn't uplifting and the prayer it didn't feel like immersed in goodness, and there is more doubt or anger even toward God, or a hesitation to trust, right? All of these things. And I was like, well, I appreciate people who just try to, model what the scriptures have to say. So I was like, oh, you know what? I can model some of those things, like the human element, where it's not only optimistic and positive, but it's not only depressing and disappointing. It's a combo of both. We weave in and out of these experiences. So anyway, one reason for those emotional videos are because my hope is to mirror the prayer life that I see in the scriptures, and even the prayer life, especially that people like me wouldn't have even been exposed to unless they began seeing it from somebody else first. So that's my perspective when it comes to why some of the emotional videos, especially like they're prayer oriented or family oriented, it's important to me to be able to capture that piece of the human experience. All right. Let me share a few other passages that also speak to this idea. So we have Psalm 10. We also have Psalm 13. See, this one says, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me?" So you see this theme, and you see it. Psalm 22 is even Jesus. This is the one Jesus quoted. Psalm 22 says, my God, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish?" Probably one of my favorite Psalms, which is also the most depressing Psalm, Psalm 88. And he just talks about being overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with troubles, and my life draws near to death. I'm counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one without strength. I'm set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you've remembered no more, who are cut off from your care. Like he's like, man, I'm just cut off from God's care. So, anyway, he closes the psalm in verse 18. Says, "You have taken from me, you have taken from me, friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend." So you see you have these pockets, these windows of this raw, gritty, rough around the edges prayer life that does mirror real life. Because of that, it's important for me to again try to be somebody who's showcasing what that actually looks like. All right, let's go to our next question. I believe we're on question number 8. Okay, here we go. What keeps you up at night? Now, this is a question. It came from my buddy Vince. He said, "What keeps you up at night?" And I was like, "I don't think anything keeps me up at night." But he's like, "What bothers you?" Or what kind of what's in there? And I think sometimes the wrestling match I can have is and it came from sitting down with an individual. We were doing this event for the homeless in San Antonio, and at this event, it's one thing to serve again food or give clothing, which was done at the event, but it's also something separate to be able to sit down, connect as a human being, right? And as I was in that situation, the idea of sharing success principles seemed off, right? Like, or sharing about, like, do I talk about my, is this even the time, place to talk about my expensive hobbies, talk about streaming like this, whatever, or what we could do for fun, right? Again, depending on who you are and your situation, like, so the amount of struggle, if I could, paint it with on one hand, there's a number of people in general struggling with life, right? Whether it's, and I'll put back up that the life pillars. So as I talk to people, you could pick any one of these, and there's people who have like massive struggles in any one of these, right? So people that I know that gone through are going through bankruptcy. There's people that I know and interact with that going through a divorce, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, right? Friends betraying friends, people with cancer and other illnesses. Again, so you have like these core life pillars, and within them, people have these massive struggles, right? And so with these, any of these, there's people who are maybe who are doing really well with some of these, and somebody, again, it might be like, let's say I'm having the best time in my marriage. Let's say I am, but then I know people who are going through these heart-wrenching divorces. Like the idea of sharing this while knowing this, sharing the goodness that I have while knowing the heartache that other people have, and that goes to any one topic. So I think there's a part of me that goes, maybe I just don't like talk about anything good, right? Like maybe I just stop sharing life, stop doing that. But again, if people, I still like, again, there's maybe there's that tension. there's a tension between people who are going through challenges, other people who are going through triumphs, and it's appropriate to go through both, to experience both. And I think that there's just a wrestling match I can have with being in my industry, being a coach or being a speaker, and being on the front line, having conversation with people who are actually going through immense challenges. It's tough. It's tough to hold that tension where you want to talk about, hey, here's how to get ahead, here's how to be successful, while people are really struggling in a real way. And the other factors that are involved in success, I think about like, there's sometimes you could have I certainly have been positioned to have incredible advantages just from my mom. My mom's her personal growth, her journey, her success, and just being around it, being immersed in it, like that gave me incredible advantages that everybody doesn't have access to. But in the middle of it, the hope is that if I could share a little bit about her successes or her stories or her principles, things that I've learned from her, that maybe everybody can have it. So that's one from me in my life. Anyway, we'll wrap this up. And but if you have a question that you'd love me to dig into, whether you don't have to say you were the one that dropped the question. But if you have a question that you want me to engage with our process, or even do a stream and engage with the question, feel free to either put it here, or you can send me a message. I also have, I think I have somewhere. Here it goes. Got a little slide, a little bit about who I am and the impact I'm trying to have. So, you all have a good one, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.